1 2 3. Tanner. Test, test, 1 2. 1 2 3. You good? One, two. Test, test, test. Test, test.
Call this meeting of the Lawton Water Authority to order Monday, April 29th at 2 p.m. Call the roll, please.
Hankins. Harris. Chapman. Gill. Hampton. Uyghur. Williams.
Present.
Warren.
Present. Brings us to item number 1. Consider adopting the recommendation from the City Council Fee Committee regarding the non-renewal of the Lawton Boat Club campground lease and direct staff to incorporate said campground into existing Schoolhouse Slough camping area utilizing the previously approved rates as set forth in Article A-19 of the city's fee schedule. I've got 2 individuals that have turned in requests to speak. If those individuals would make their way down to the front row, once staff gets finished, I'll give you an opportunity. Yes, sir.
Mayor Pro Tem and Council, I guess it was a couple meetings ago at council meeting, we provided a presentation on the status of the existing or the remaining 4 concessionaire agreements that we have at the city lakes. Basically, we were seeking direction from council on what you would like, how you want us to proceed, whether we're going to try to extend those agreements or do something different. That particular motion was made on all 4 of those to refer those to the Council Fee Committee for consideration and to get a recommendation from them. I believe it was on April 17th, I think, something like that. The Fee Committee met. We went through each individual agreement with them and basically outlined what those agreements contained within them. We talked about specifically the amenities that were provided in each one, the fees that are associated with each lease agreement, and what those consisted of, and then allowed discussion time, and ultimately a recommendation was made. With respect to the Lawton Boat Club, the recommendation was to not renew the agreement and to allow the existing agreement to expire and then roll that or absorb it into the Schoolhouse Slough concession area, where it would be managed by city staff with revenues from those camp spots falling in accordance with A-19, which is our fee schedule. That's the motion or the action that you have before you today. So you would be considering that as the recommendation from the fee committee.
Are there any questions from council of staff? If I don't see any, Max, you want to go first?
Sure.
Just name and address.
Max Sassine, 1701 Cash Road. I always get nervous when I come up here and speak, so I apologize for that, no matter how many times I come. But the first thing I want to say is just really a general comment about civility about concerning the city and the city council. I try to come to as many city council meetings as I can, and sometimes the comments that people make, when I'm not here, I try to watch on Facebook. And of course, on Facebook, people, have the comments, continuously. And I just feel like that this body is treated unfairly. And I just think that people need to try to be more civil and learn how to disagree agreeably. And in relation to this one this one motion or this thing we're talking about today, I just want to apologize if you've received anything that's been less than civil or less than kind. Okay, because our understanding is that well, the Lawton Boat Club and the City of Lawton, the City Council, has been partners for a really long time, and I only say that because this lease renewal has happened for a long time, every 5 years, 10 years, and we've always come together with conversation, and we've always sought for win-win, and we've worked it out for a really long time. I mean, there was one particular instance, I think it was 15 years ago. Kim Shahan was the Parks and Rec director, and it was a time in the city of Lawton where there was really a crunch on finances. I mean, the city council, sent out basically a directive to all the different departments and said, look, we need to generate revenue every place we can. And the Lawton Boat Club was up for renewal during that time. And at that time, we increased the fee that we're paying by 10 times because the city came to us and they said, look, you have a fantastic spot. We like what you're doing out there, but the circumstances of the reality of the day was that you just have to pay more. But we were able to negotiate that and come out with a win-win. Now, in the early days, when the Lawton Boat Club first was leased that space, it was pretty easy for city councils because it was just a raw piece of land. And so for decades, just the improvement of the land and making something out of nothing was certainly justifiable to have a low lease rate. And then, as years continued, it became important. I think we realized in our lease that the Lawton Boat Club was leased this space that we needed to try to give something back. And that's when we started the boat safety inspections. We would go down to the slough and try to spread the word about boat safety. We changed our policies and really started to invite the public into the space. So one of our favorite to go to is the Cub Scouts and the Boy Scouts, right? Well, it's their favorite spot to camp, come to find out. And but we realized over the years that in order to have a spot like this, that we were going to have to try to give some back. Of course, with the mayor's initiatives now on low and no cost activities, the idea that a Cub Scout pack or a Boy Scout troop or a civic organization could actually come and have events now at our new pavilion that we've built, I think is just working toward the cause and adds to the kind of quality life, or at least we need to be concerned as a boat club that we need to be reaching out. We can't just enjoy what the club has to offer. We have to do more for the community. So I think with the new pavilion and the ability to market that to outside organizations is important. So enhancing community access is, I think, a win. Our proposal, I worked over the weekend because we were kind of under a time crunch, but I got the boat club, the whole boat club membership, we called a membership meeting, and I explained to them that the world has changed and that you can no longer operate under the same terms that maybe were appropriate in the past. The Lawton Boat Club has paid as agreed. We have paid exactly what the city council has told us to pay. But that's not enough in this market. During the pandemic, of course, you remember those times, right, of lockdowns and all that. What happened nationwide was a huge explosion in the purchases of boats and RVs. When the planes were restricted and the cruise lines couldn't work and the hotels were shut down, across the country, people bought boats and RVs. Well, there's a result of that. The demand for the spaces to use those vehicles and boats has just exponentially grown. I was speaking to Larry Parks this morning, the Parks and Rec director, about this and he said, Max, I was one of those guys. He said, yeah, I bought a boat during that time. And so it's a real thing, but it changes the circumstance. So as a challenge for the boat club, we have to realize that what was in the past is no longer in the past. We have to deal with the requirements of today. And so since taking over, you guys have got a lot of responsibility now. It seems like the vendor, the Schoolhouse Slough convenience store, the gas pumps, the taking over of the camping spaces, that's just a huge responsibility for you guys. And what we want to do is be a part of the solution. So our recommendation that we worked over the weekend was that number one, we want to increase our community access. Number two, we want to maintain the responsibility for all the expenses. So when something breaks at the Lawton Boat Club, we don't pick up the phone and call the city for a fix. We handle it ourselves. We do the mowing, the electricity, the water, the maintenance on the dock, the maintenance on the schoolhouse, not the schoolhouse slough, but our little slough, the boat club slough. That all requires to be rubbed on constantly. And then the last thing, which I explained to the club, that if you don't fix this one thing, there's no reason to talk about all the other. And that is the question of the finances. It's clear now that the city can make a certain amount of money with those spots. And so our proposal in a nutshell is to increase the rent from somewhere around $7,000 to $50,000 for the next, for the 24-25 year. And we have that money, we've raised that money, we have that money to pay. So on the drafting of a lease by the city attorney's office, we can pay a deposit on that or pay the full amount. We're prepared to write the check for $50,000. We know that that doesn't bring us to market value. There's some way to go, but what we want to do is get on a trajectory for ramping up to something that would be closer to market value. So I think 4 years, every year after the first year of $50,000, there's a 20% increase proposed. That would basically end up within a 5-year period, we would be at just over $100,000. And so I think it's like 104. I think it was emailed to you. But when you take the 104, hopefully add in the good works of the community, then also add on top of that the fact that we're just not going to call you with problems and pay for our own expenses, that over a glide path to getting to market value. And that's my report.
Thank you, Max. I have a
Michael McClellan. Yes, sir.
Famous Howard.
your name again and your address.
Michael McClellan, 2809 Northeast Scottsdale Circle here in Lawton, Oklahoma. I'm just speaking on behalf of the Boat Club, just reiterate what Max said and let you know there's a lot of intangibles that go into the Boat Club too, that we can't really measure the monetary worth of that. You know, we do open our club up for a lot of occasions. We built a new pavilion. We spent a lot of money on that. And that was part of our last lease. We told the city we were going to build a new pavilion, and we did that. We had a new pavilion built. We raised the funds, and we had that made. And we've opened that pavilion up for a lot of uses. And again, all this was free. We've had military retirements. We've had, from Fort Sill, we've had several units come out there and do retirements. We've had units come out there and do PCS, transfer parties where parties were getting transferred. We had several members of the Boat Club that were full-time active duty military and were continuous members of the Boat Club while they were here, just because they attended events like that and saw the environment and saw the kind of people that were there and wanted to be part of that. And our membership is not exclusive. Our membership is very inclusive. You know, the basic requirement is you own a boat, and that's it. And you fill out an application and you write a check for the membership. You do those three things, you become a member of the Boat Club and you get your key to the gate. And at that point, you have full use of everything. You can come in on day one, you can come in and sign, you can come in and launch your boat on the boat ramp, which the Boat Club built at no cost to the city. The boat ramp was installed by the Boat Club. You can reserve the pavilion for a family reunion, again, at no cost to you. And again, the pavilion was built at no cost to the city. Everything in the Boat Club is pristine because that was our agreement 71 years ago with the city. We're going to make this area look good, and we're going to take good care of it, and we're going to be good stewards of what you've given us. And we have done our best efforts to do exactly that. We try to open up the gates. We have cookouts. We open up the gates. We always invite city staff and the police officers that have to work the lakes on holiday weekends. We make sure they're invited to come eat with us. We're not, again, there's a lot of intangibles that we can't even speak about, and how do you assign a monetary value to that, to the goodwill that represents? And it not only represents the goodwill of the Boat Club, but also the city of Lawton, that we're welcoming. We want people to come out and enjoy the amenities. We've had a lot of people that come visit the Boat Club and then join the Boat Club. I even have friends from Burkburnett, Texas that joined the Boat Club, and they're active members of the Boat Club. They don't have an RV space, but they come to all the events and they actively participate. So not only does it draw people from here and show them what the city, what Wetumpka and the amenity we have, it draws people from further away too. So I would really ask you to consider those intangibles also when you consider our proposal. We tried to be as fair as we could to get our people gradually there. We have some low-income people. We have a lot of retired people that are members of the Boat Club, and therefore we thought a gradual increase in their rates would be able to absorb, they'd be able to absorb that a little bit better than going from 0 to 100 in one step. But we don't mind. We're going to offer a sevenfold, more than sevenfold increase in our basic lease to start with. And by the time the end of the 5 years, we should be at fair market value where we want to be anyway. So we would hope, I would certainly hope for your consideration in this matter.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Can I ask him a question? Mike, did you retire from the, where'd you retire from?
Oklahoma Highway Patrol,
Okay.
42 and a half years.
Yeah. And you never wrote any of us any tickets, did you?
You know,
Good to see you, Mike.
I would never tell if I did, Alan.
I'm sorry, Bill wants to speak.
I'm Major Bill Ramsey, U.S. Army retired after 21 years, and I've been in Lawton area more than 50 years now. And I'm also Dr. Bill Ramsey, Professor Emeritus from Cameron University, where I taught law-related classes full-time and practiced law part-time for 35 years, although I haven't practiced law much in the last 10 or 15. And I joined the Lawton Boat Club 42 years ago. And water activities in Lawton, Oklahoma has been a thing of my life for a long time. I have a son that was born in Berlin, Germany in 1960, and I remember when he was 5 years old, I water skied at Lake Latonka with him on my shoulders. And he is now 64 years old. And so I've had a lot of activities. I've been a member of the Lawton Boat Club for the last 42 years. 42 years. And I've got a place out there right on the edge of the lake, and I've planted trees, and I've got 4 or 5 trees around there that I've planted. And the Lawton Boat Club has really protected the shorelines. We have rocks all along the shorelines, and I remember hand carrying those big rocks right all along the shoreline that weighs 20 or 30 pounds, and now the whole area there is rock and small rocks down on the beach line. So all of that has been protected.
You can carry more rock than I can. I know that for a fact.
and a lot of things has been done. And of course, we have a lot of members now, and you've heard the activities and stuff that we also provide to organizations other than just the members of the Lawton Boat Club. And this is a thing that should not be terminated. We have done so much work, and I've been experienced because I'm now the person that's got the most years in the Lawton Boat Club. 42 years I've been a member of the Lawton Boat Club and done work out there and stuff. And I've taught classes at Cameron University for 35 years, started in 1981, and totally retired now. But it's a nice place, and the people that have it now, and the people that have done this for the last 70 years, because it's been a boat club member. The boat club has been there for over 70 years now, and it needs to stay there as a plus thing for the city of Lawton. And I encourage you to let us continue to lease it and activities, provide activities and stuff for the sport. Don't terminate the Lawton Boat Club. It is a plus for the city of Lawton and the area in Lawton. And so give us a 5-year lease and be reasonable and continue association of the Lawton Boat Club. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Harris.
First of all, I want to thank the boat club members. I went out yesterday while they were having their meeting. They gave me a tour, and I was very impressed with the work that they've done. And it is truly a magnificent facility. And then I want to say that, and being on the fee committee, this is a tremendous offer. It's it's 700% increase immediately and 1,300% over the life of the lease. And I think that's it's getting us really, really close to where we wanted to be, and I think it's a good deal, and I think we ought to accept it. And I will make that motion that we direct staff to draft an amended lease to be presented to the Lawton Water Authority for approval, extending the Lawton Boat Club's concessionaire agreement by 5 years. The revised agreement will begin with an initial lease rate of $50,000 for the first year, followed by a 20% increase for each subsequent year of the agreement, with both parties continuing their current obligations.
We've got a motion and a second. Mr. Hampton.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. As we grow, and all of us up here being responsible for the citizens of Lawton as a whole, we each have our ward, but we're responsible. I think that as we grow, it's very evident that the citizens are a part of the growth, because they are the growth. And although we would love to be up here the rest of our lives, we're under term limits, and thus in this short period of time, we have to kind of turn the horse's head, turn the boat in the direction that we think that it needs to go. And I think that it shows some maturity in you group of people that have decided to come to the table rather than to just complain. It is easier for us as a council to listen and try to tell you, because if there were things that we didn't agree with, then we could obviously say that at this point and maybe work towards that center line. But I want to commend all of you for the way you've handled this situation, and I think that it was handled in a very mature manner. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes, sir.
Dwayne, what was the dollar amount difference at the 5-year level? They'll be at $103,680 if we did it with the new fee schedule, which I don't have in front of me. What are we looking at different as far as total dollars?
Staff's projections, if we had stayed with the original recommendation of the fee committee, would have generated around $61,550 for the first year. Second year would have went to just under $77,000, and third year would have been at $96,000 and some change. That was over the 3-year window. That was the same exact allotments or incremental increases that we made for all of the individuals in the Schoolhouse Slough campground area.
But we will have to do improvements if the city takes it back.
We would be, if we took it back, we would be responsible for the upkeep and any improvements that are in there with respect to repairs, anything like that. They're 100% correct in that under their agreement, they manage all of that.
Mm-hmm. So while we're looking at those figures, 61, 77, and 96, that really won't be a total dollar plus in the plus column, because there will be expenses out of that. So I'm trying to see what the difference is between what they're offering and what the fee schedule is.
So one of the things, remember, that is that's based on the spaces that are currently there. When we looked at it, there's opportunities there to expand that campground, to add additional spaces. It also doesn't take into consideration Council Policy 9-3 that provides a policy procedure for vacant spaces. We recently went through that process with some spaces in the Schoolhouse Slough. Two of those spaces generated $40,000 just in getting access to those spaces. So it just depends on, what council wants to do. I mean, there's opportunity there. Staff really doesn't, we don't really have a dog in the fight. It's whatever the council
Well, I
likes to see.
understand, yeah. It looks to me like it's probably closer than what might be expected, and there is the thing such as goodwill
Yes.
for our citizens to consider also. So that's why I wanted to point that out.
Bet.
You're welcome. I, It's okay. I want to thank you all for coming to us. As you know, I'm not a boat person, so I have become very quickly educated this week by discussing these elements that you've brought forth. And for you just to come together with this proposal, to me, for me personally, speaks volumes. That you're willing to understand that being stewards of the citizens' money, we have got to look at the bottom line, no matter what we do. So thank you very much for coming together and talking with me and others on council and emailing us the proposal. I appreciate that very much.
Thank you, ma'am. My only comment would be that through this entire endeavor that we've started, I guess, a year ago or more, my intention was for everything to be equitable. And if we can figure out a way, if staff and the boat club can sit down and figure out a way to make it equitable, that's all that I really care about. I want, and I always use the little old lady that lives next door to me because there isn't one right now. But as long as it's equitable for her money, because that's what that is. That's her money that's out there. It's not the cities or the councils, or it belongs to the citizens of Lawton. And as long as it's equitable between space A and space B, it may not be monetarily exactly equitable, but if we're not having to take care of it, if we can work that out to where we think it's pretty equitable, I don't have a problem with it. I've got a motion and a second.
Read the motion again.
Thank you, George. Motion to direct staff to draft an amended lease to be presented to the Lawton Water Authority for approval, extending the Lawton Boat Club's concessionaire agreement by 5 years. The revised agreement will begin with an initial lease rate of $50,000 for the first year, followed by a 20% increase in each subsequent year of the agreement, with both parties continuing their current obligations.
I had resigned from the lease committee, not the fees committee, not very long ago. So I think I just did that in time. Of course, I'm a short timer, but we wanted a win-win for everyone. That's kind of what we have in mind always. So I'm happy that we're headed toward that. And I'm not a boat person either, but I kind of got excited talking about the lake today, so maybe.
Come visit us. I'll give you a ride. I see no other comments from council. Call the roll, please. Vote, please. That item was approved 8-0. Brings us to item number 2. Thank you all for coming. I appreciate that. That brings us to item number 2. Consider adopting the recommendation of the Lawton City Council Fee Committee regarding the extension of Sunken Bridge Yacht Club campground lease through December 31st, 2027, and direct staff to modify the existing lease to provide for an incremental price increase beginning at $2,500 for 2025, $4,000 for 2026, $6,000 for 2027, and including language clarifying that it is the city's intention to absorb the campground into the Schoolhouse Slough campground area upon expiration of the lease extension on December 31st, 2027. Yes, sir.
Again, council, a couple meetings ago, we brought a presentation on Sunken Bridge Yacht Club as well as the other concessionaires. It was also referred to the fee committee. That committee did meet. We did discuss and review the lease, the current lease agreement, as well as the fee structure associated with it. The Sunken Bridge Yacht Club presents a little bit of a different anomaly in that we deal with the construction and the way sailboats are put together and with the mast. They can't just be towed down the road with a mast up. And so in an effort to provide a space for them, they've had a long-standing agreement with the city to be able to store those boats where they can launch them without having to remove the mast. Apparently, it's pretty cumbersome to put those up and take them down. They have a marina as well that's very, very well protected that allows them to sail into and actually access the shoreline there. That's through the protection, they can moor their boats there. So when discussing this particular piece of ground, I will tell you it's probably one of the most picturesque sites on the lake. It sits directly across from Mount Scott and has quite a beautiful view. There is a berm there that was pushed up, I'm not sure when, but it actually provides protection for that cove area that they bring their boats in. The one thing that we really didn't talk a whole lot about was the dry storage up on the shore area where the boats are. And we went out there, staff and I did, took a few photographs. There are a lot of those boats that are in a very serious state of disrepair. Some of them haven't been tagged or registered, it looks like, for over 10, 12 years. That's a little disheartening considering we really want to get on board and try to help them provide a spot to store those boats. But I don't think it was the city's intention to provide more or less a boneyard for old boats. And that's, some of that is kind of turned, they're not all that way, but and I don't want anybody to say that that's what I said, but there are some of them that are clearly in a state of disrepair. And so we would ask, you know, if we move forward with this recommendation, that some of that maybe get cleaned up. The recommendation specifically, though, from the fee committee was to do kind of a hybrid by extending the lease by 3 years plus the remaining portion of this year with incremental increases in the lease rate. And one of the things that the fee committee brought up was in recognition of the fact that they are sailboats and they do need a space around there because we don't currently, with the exception of the Sunken Bridge Yacht Club, we don't currently provide dry storage for sailboats. And so as part of a concession, if you will, for extending the lease, the recommendation was made that the council would consider that as one of the improvements that we would make to the lake moving forward, where we would construct an area that would be secure, that they could paper a space to actually store those boats there close to the lake. That way they don't have to take the mast down and haul it back to their home or wherever they might live. So we felt like that was very reasonable, and so that's part of the recommendation of the fee committee. So we're looking at basically a 3.5-year extension of the lease with more or less a understood commitment that we're going to look at trying to improve the lake area there to provide a space for those sailboats.
Thank you.
You bet.
Any comments? Yes, ma'am.
Can I ask a question?
Mm-hmm.
What's the solution on the boats that have not been tagged for so long?
They're personal property, and I can't, I mean, there's a possibility that the owners of those vessels may have tagged them and just didn't put the stickers on the side. So that could be it. I mean, you have to register them just like a car. So when you own a boat, there's things that you have to do. But I can tell you that there were several of them out there that didn't even have the tires on the rims anymore. And some of them were buried up. The tires or the rims were this far into the ground. They hadn't moved in many, many years. So
Does our lake patrol have that kind of a list? Do you know?
Do they what?
Do they have a list of these registered and unregistered sailboats?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
With it being currently under lease and it's in a fenced-in area, we don't really patrol that. That's kind of out of our space.
Any other questions from council? If not, I would entertain a motion.
Mayor Pro Tem and Council, I move to offer a temporary lease extension to the Stunken Bridge Yacht Club through December 31st, 2027, and direct staff to modify the existing list to provide an incremental price increase beginning at $2,500 for 2025, $4,000 for 2026, and $6,000 for 2027, and include language clarifying that it is the city's intention to absorb the campground into the Schoolhouse Slough campground area at the expiration of the lease extension on December 31st, 2027.
I've got a motion and a second. Please vote. That item was approved 7-0. That brings us to item number 3. Consider adopting a recommendation of the City Council Fee Committee regarding the non-renewal of Minnow Marina at Fisherman's Cove Campground lease and direct staff to incorporate said campground into city's day-use camping areas, utilizing the previously approved rates as set forth in Article A-19 of the city's fee schedule. Yes, sir.
So this is the third out of 4 of the concessionaire agreements that we presented on a couple meetings ago. It did also go to the fee committee for consideration and evaluation. Basically, this particular concessionaire is probably the most recent one. It has the most recent concessionaire or change in concessionaires. Back in 2018, I believe, is when Ms. Sims took it over. It was a 5-year lease. It's coming up for expiration at this point. Staff, as well as myself, and I've also toured with a couple council as well, have been out there and looked it over. Not a whole lot of improvements have been done. They have maintained the grounds to the degree that they've kept the trash picked up and some of it mowed. But all in all, we do have some environmental issues that we're very concerned about. One is the sewer lift station that is not operational. It's being used right now as like a cistern vault. Basically, the sewage is being piped in, and it appears that they're just having it pumped out. Probably not going to suffice if the DEQ comes in and wants to do an inspection. The recommendation from our sewer rehab people and staff was that we would abandon that, fill it in, and eliminate that. There's also discussion about the extensive, there's a water line, it's a 3-inch water line that runs from the main, and I don't know, what is it, a mile long? About 1.5 miles long. There's 7 or 8 people at the campground right now that reside there. There's some health concerns with respect to the potability of that water and the chlorination and whether or not there's enough flow to keep that sanitary where it's consumable. I will tell you that the existing lessee, Ms. Sims, has indicated that she's tested it and she thought it tested fine. They also believe that they had the lift station working as well, but we can't get any power to it. And we're pretty sure that the pumps are completely kaput. So at this point, the recommendation that staff made to the fee committee was that we abandon that lease and turn it into a day use area until the city has enough funds or the desire to go back in and make the necessary repairs to the infrastructure that would make it a worthwhile concessionaire. There used to be a store there, multiple trailers, and there is a boat dock there. So it has a lot of potential. It is the foremost arm, if you will, peninsula that sticks out into Lake Ellsworth. But with that being said, it's also very, very unprotected. And so when you look at the possibilities for that area, there's a lot of potential, but there's not a lot of protection. For instance, if you were going to park boats or create some kind of a marina or a boathouse district, something like that. Now, with that being said, I think council also needs to look farther down the road in the development and expansion of the Elgin community is probably going to drive some usage of that area in the future. So that may be something that you want to consider down the road. But for right now, the recommendation was to not renew.
Thank you, sir.
Mayor Pro Tem, Council, I have a question. If we decide to stop this lease, what happens to the sewer system, the lift station and all of that? Because I don't know that much about sewer systems either. I mean, what happens?
So if we don't renew the lease, that would be an operational decision, probably to go out there and fill that in and abandon that, cap it off, and just do away with it completely.
Any other questions or comments for staff? Yes, ma'am.
Mayor, Council, Mayor Pro Tem Council, I move that we allow the current lease agreement with the Minnow Marina at Fisher. Oops, sorry.
Just need your name and...
My name is Tanya Cates, 6101 Southeast Woodlawn, Lawton, Oklahoma. And I am, usually my mother, Amy Sims, is here, but she's currently training 150 precinct workers, so I come to speak in her honor. Yes, we have had the lift station looked at. It was under the impression that it was not working at all this whole time that we have had the lease. It has. We had connected electricity to it, so it does work. Recently, there was a storm that came through and it had knocked it out, and that being almost at our end of our 5 lease, we didn't know if we were going to fix it or not, if it was worth, putting the money into it. Well, we went ahead and had it looked at, and as of yesterday, we did have it running. There is one pump, I believe, that does need work, but it was running. And there was one time that we had it pumped out so that we could see what was wrong with it. And as far as the water quality, we had Patrick Riddle. He is a certified water and wastewater with a D license, and he came and checked the water, and it was in the middle. It was didn't show anything wrong with it. And so that we are just asking that if we could come and maybe talk all together and discuss this, because we have worked really hard to clean that area up. That's what most of the 5 years have spent. We have spent all our money to clean up. There was multiple storage units out there that we had to clean up that were left. There was a trailer house. There was the store that burnt down that we had to clean up. We have added 9 new electricity and water permanent spots out there. Of course, we mow, we take care of the beach. And one of our concerns is that if we let it go back to the city of Lawton, that because it is off, I would say off grid, one of the problems that we had when we got there was a lot of drug traffic. There was a lot of homeless people coming out there. There was a lot of trash dumped out there. And so it's really beneficial that we have somebody that's on site out there all the time, that we're able to run people off that are causing trouble or that have dumped trash. There's plenty of times that we've had to do that, and as well as the motorcycles that come out there that try to use the property, or the ATVs. We get to we're able to call the police or get somebody out there to help, so they're not destroying the land and they're not supposed to be out there. So it's just a little bit of protection for somebody to be out there all the time. And we're just asking that maybe we could table this, if not right now, if we can't come to to be able to extend the lease for, if not a year, but for 5 years. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
I still have a concern with the sewer system. I don't know the answer to that, but I do have how that could have a backlash to the city of Lawton is my concern with that.
Seeing,
I've got a question.
okay, yes, sir.
Dwayne, have we had anybody from the state look at this and make a determination exactly how bad it is or what the potential upside would be of that?
Haven't with the state of Oklahoma. The sewer superintendent, Glenn, and I met out there today. There is no power that we found to the lift station. We tested wires that came in. I sent Dwayne photos of the electric box. Bring them on up. Are you not using the panel that?
The panel that's there, there's wires sticking out behind it.
Uh-huh.
It's from an old pole that blew over. So if you stand at that pump station and look to the south, there's another electric panel. You run power from there down.
So the panel that was set up and designed for that lift station is null and void, is what I'm hearing, and the power comes from
Is he an
the
electrician?
campground?
Is he an electrician? Are you
I had an electrician hook it up.
Is it to code?
I believe so. So there's the power on yesterday. There's where we pumped it out yesterday.
Where's your?
This is me standing on it, looking to the south.
Okay, so it's not the panel that is next to the?
No, the panel, the meter is up here for that power.
Okay. So the power we were looking at is the one that was installed back when Fisherman's Cove was Fisherman's Cove. There's not a wire one in there that's live. The photos I also sent showed the two arms that hold those pumps together. I think they'd indicated one of those pump lines broke loose. I don't know if both pumps are actually functional. So there is maintenance to do in
Is that a backup pump system, or are both pumps required to take care of the?
It's a backup with floats.
Yeah.
Okay. Typically, there's two in there that work on float systems based on the water level. If one goes down, one is in there as a backup until that other one.
One works, one doesn't.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Sims made a very good debate for her mother, to represent her mother. She had mentioned some other things like the traffic out there and some things going on. We don't want to go on there. Do we have enough supervision out there to monitor that if we terminate the lease with our people? I mean, can we do that?
As far as the maintenance goes, we can. Now,
Okay.
we're not there 24 hours a
Yeah.
day.
Yeah.
That's the situation when it was Fisherman's Cove early 80s until 2013 is the concession at that time lived on site. But during the weekdays, we have Lake Patrol staff and city staff. We've mowed right away in. We don't do any mowing now. That's been the concession. We still mow the right of way when we have the tractor out doing the county road right of ways leading to city property.
Well, the last thing we want is an increase in crime out there, I guess. So,
We have several spots around Ellsworth that are deep off the road. We've hauled several illegal dumps, even south, well, towards Tony Creek from Fisherman's Cove. We've had to haul illegal dump sites back into either our shop area or to the landfill. But depends on how many people are there and how many people want to be involved in those kind of activities and stopping those, for sure.
Ms. Williams?
How long are you asking for this lease? You said at least 1 year or?
Well, 5 years.
Okay.
To make any improvements, and we would like a longer lease because we don't want to invest our money and then if this happens. And that's one of the things we struggle with the most is that, we want to make that place where, because there are lots of people that come out there to enjoy it. We like to keep it nice and it's free to go swimming, and for us to make any investments for
Mr. Uyghur?
Mayor Pro Tem, one question that I'd like to ask is, how have the current leasees handled with their goal and reaching their objectives of their goals they sent to the city when they had the 5-year lease previously? How many of those goals were met and completed?
I don't have that right in front of me, but
Can you come up and speak into the microphone, please?
when we originally gave our plan out, a lot of things, of course, changed with the store burning down. The bathrooms there were bathrooms there that were going to be able to be fixed. That was all gone because that was right next to it. So that changed things. And then it took a little while to get most of the trash off of there. It was really cluttered with debris, heavy debris. Oh, thank you.
Yeah, my question was just with the goals that you set to the
yes.
city and said this is what you're going to shoot for or attain. How many of those were you able to accomplish in your, I think it'd be year 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5? This
I
being
would
the
say
fifth.
over half. We added the 9 spots with electric sewer. We were able to take down the store. We weren't able to put the bathrooms up, although we do have, during season, we do put out porta potties until we can get the bathroom. But again, investing that money on something that we might not be able to use is scary. I mean, just, and.
Well, understood, but the
then
goals were set by you, not us.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah.
And, okay.
Okay, thank you.
Randy?
Yes, sir. Oh, Mr. Hampton.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Bird. Dwayne, maybe I kind of was thinking of about something else when we were talking about it. The city is planning on doing something with this property at some point in the future, and I was just, can you, if you already said something about that, could you repeat that, please, about exactly where we as a city are going to go in maybe a timeline on where we want to end up with doing what we want to with this area?
We don't have a specific timeline. If we did not renew the lease, it would revert back to a day use area only. A fee collector would come through and collect those fees every day. We'd have to begin maintaining that. But with respect to future development, that is certainly going to be on the radar as we begin our improvement process over both lakes. The primary focus right now, obviously, is Lake Latonka. That's the more recreational usage, with Ellsworth being primarily a fishing lake. It just doesn't get the traffic yet. I mentioned a while ago about, down the road, the expansion and growth of the Elgin community is probably going to start driving some more recreational type usage over there. But again, that area it's about 40 acres. There's considerable shoreline around it, but the issues with it is it's just not very well protected. And so it doesn't get the uses like for swimming and stuff as much so that you would think it for a recreational area. But
let me make a comment. This considering adopting not to renew this lease. So if we go forth and decide that we want to adopt it, there are more things at play than vagrants and dumping of trash. We're going to have a problem with the state health department, which we already do, and we don't need any more, and that's with that lift station, because that's a serious issue, and the state does inspect that. And we will be responsible as a city for that. So if we don't go forward with what's on the agenda, then we need to table this, or that would be my recommendation, that we table it, because we need to work out an arrangement of what we are going to do with that lift station and who's going to fix it, and then who's going to be responsible for paying for it 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 20 years from now when that lease is abandoned. So we don't get in another situation like what we have out at Lake Latonka with the Waller lease. So we just need to think about those things.
Mr. Hampton.
Yeah, sorry. I just wanted to add on one thing. You guys were wanting the lease for 1 to 5 years, and there's obviously plans to build up the area that you have. My concern is much like Councilwoman Hankins is concerned that the area doesn't become a unmowed, desolate area for undesirables to kind of go out there and take over. And obviously, there's going to be some policing and then people going and collecting fees and stuff. But it would seem like that 40 acres is a really big area to be patrolled. And so those are kind of some of my thoughts on there, that this doesn't turn out to be kind of a quasi-abandoned area that we'll have to retake at some point.
Seeing no others, if there's no substitute motion, I have a motion and a second, I believe, to consider adopting the recommendation of the City Fee Committee regarding the non-renewal of Minnow Marina at Fisherman's Cove. Is that going once, going twice? Call the roll.
Mayor Pro Tem.
I'm not.
Mayor Pro Tem, was there a second on that motion?
No.
Well, Dwayne, a question I have is if we do nothing at the moment, the contract expires when, or the lease?
Is it the 30th? May the 30th? Or June 30th?
There's,
And then I'll make the second,
I've got
and we'll see how it falls.
a motion to table and a second.
No,
Any more discussion?
Not the table. I'm seconding the original motion.
The original motion? Okay, I've got a motion and a second for the original motion, which was to consider adopting the recommendation of the City Council Fee Committee regarding the non-renewal of the Minnow Marina at Fisherman's Cove. Call the vote, please. That item passed 5-2. That brings us to item number 4. Pursuant to section...
Yeah, we need a motion.
Okay, yeah. Anybody want to make a motion to go executive?
So moved. So moved.
We've got a motion and a second to go into executive session. Please vote or call a roll.
Hampton. Uyghur. Williams.
Yes.
Warren. Hankins. Chapman. Gill. Hampton,
Item 4, pursuant to Section 307B3, Title 25 Oklahoma statutes, the Water Authority convened an executive session to discuss the purchase of real property, including anything attached to or erected on said property pertaining to Ralph's Resort located at Lake Ellsworth, relating to the upcoming expiration of Ralph's Resort concessionary lease with the city, the Water Authority. That conversation did occur, and I'm understanding we have a motion.
I move to direct staff to amend the Ralph's Resort lease and concession agreement between the Lawton Water Authority, Steve and Sandra Perry, and the City of Lawton to include removal of the appraisal requirement and allow for negotiated purchase price of the property owned by the Perrys at Ralph's Resort, and to bring the same back for ratification by the Lawton Water Authority and the City of Lawton.
Second. Have a motion and a second. Please vote or call the roll. That item passed 7-0. At this time, I would accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to adjourn. Please vote.
Warren,
Yes.
Hankins, Chapman, Gill, Hampton, Uyghur, Williams.
Yes.
That brings us to call this meeting of the Lawton City Council to order. Please stand for the invocation by Alan Hampton and remain standing for the pledge.
Bow your heads, please. Father, we thank you again for your goodness and mercy. We come before you and ask you to give us wisdom and insight to make the decisions that we need to make. As we're going through this budget, lead us and guide us that indeed the future will be set and prosperity will come. In Jesus' name, amen.
Business item number 1, consider the FY 2025.
Mayor Pro Tem, I'm sorry to interrupt. Can I call the roll, please?
Please call the roll.
Hankins, Harris, Chapman, Gill, Hampton, Uyghur, Williams.
Present.
Warren.
Present. Item number 1, consider the FY 2025 City of Lawton proposed operating preliminary budget and budget book presentation and take appropriate action if necessary to include making amendments to and the preliminary budget to be incorporated in the final budget and budget book presentation that council considers. Yes, ma'am.
Good afternoon. Let me fix it. So today we're going to be talking about personnel and operating expenses. So we've made a few changes to the budget since you got your books back earlier this month. First thing we did was we decreased the general fund expenditures by $497,000. We kind of went back through with a few divisions that had bigger requests and fine-tuned those a little more, and that was the result of that. We also added a planning director. I would like to point out that that $177,000 is not strictly salary. This is a long-term employee, so she's got vacation payout, sick payout, longevity, plus benefits on top of that. We did reduce the internal auditor salary by $31,000. This person will not be getting those payouts that I spoke about or the longevity. We corrected an expense from fiscal year 23 regarding the landfill state fee. We receive that money in a liability account, so when we remit that money to the state, it needs to be paid out of that liability as well. And then we also added a principal equipment operator and a senior equipment operator to the sewer rehabs budget, which totaled $114,500. Any questions on those revisions? Okay. So here's just a chart of our expenses for personnel and operating over the last 5 years. You can see enterprise and our other funds have been just on a steady incline. General fund was also on a steady incline up until fiscal year 23, or 24, excuse me. It took a big jump there, and if the budget were passed today right now, there would be another big jump in fiscal year 25. So we're going to talk about personnel first. The funds listed here are all the funds that pay personnel. So you'll see there's two big jumps, one from fiscal year 23 to fiscal year 24. This involves the compensation study implementation. So that's the reason for that jump. There's also a big jump from fiscal year 24 to fiscal year 25. Reason being is fiscal year 24, this is what we project to spend. There's quite a few vacancies currently, so obviously we won't spend that money. But for the fiscal 25 budget, we have to budget as if every vacancy will be filled for the entire year. Obviously, probably not very realistic, but from a budget standpoint, that's how we have to do things. So overall, our total increase from fiscal year 23 actuals to fiscal year 25 budget is just over 30%. But again, vacancies play a huge part in that big jump. So now we'll go through the personnel expenses by account. You can see salaries and wages have increased just over 13 million. We'll get into that on a later slide. Differential standby pay has increased minimally, 27,000. Our sick leave pay in lieu has gone down significantly from fiscal year 23 to fiscal year 25. We had a few people leave in 23 that didn't take terminal leave, and so they got their sick leave paid out when they left. So that's the reason it was so high in 23. Our contract labor is up 397,000. That is drainage maintenance is 135,000 of that. Solid waste is 80,914, and our building division is 50,000. Those were the three major requests in contract labor. Our part-time is up 289,000. This is affected by the compensation study, as well as we've added 7 positions since fiscal year 23 that are part-time. Our overtime is actually down slightly, 98,000. Holiday pay down slightly, 11,000. Terminal leave is down significantly. I'm only aware of a couple of people that'll be on terminal leave next year, so that's the reason for that decrease. Unemployment contribution, this is kind of a wild card. We never know how much we're going to pay, so it was pretty low in 23. It's been pretty high so far in 24, so I kind of left it as is for 25. FICA is up just over $500,000. Again, that compensation study was a big reason for that. Medicare, same thing, up 155,000. Workers' compensation, it's been pretty steady the last few years, so I didn't increase it a ton. It's increased 155 over the last 3 years. Group life and hospital, this is our insurance. Part of the deal with the vacancies is I have to assume that those vacancies are going to take the full family plan. Not necessarily going to happen, but we have to budget for worst case scenarios, so that's why you see that $2 million jump there. Our pension plan, this is also where the retirees are paid from, so this is why that's so high. It's just over $3 million. I also budgeted for some potential payouts to the retirees that you all are aware of. Our police pension plan is up 432,000. Fire pension plan up 77,000. Longevity is down 5,800. This will continue to decline as those long-term employees retire. Our uniform maintenance is up 7,000, and education incentive is down 15,000. Any questions so far? Okay. So our notable increases to salaries and wages by dollar amount. So I did this slide a little differently. I did it as budgeted, what we budgeted in 23, what we budgeted in 24, and versus what we budgeted in 25. It takes the vacancy equation out of it. You don't have to worry about that, and it gives you a little clearer picture of where the increases are. So our general employees retirement is up 2.2 million, again, for those potential payouts. Police uniform is up 856,000. I should note the police uniform also has 131 employees. So obviously they're going to have a bigger increase than, say, city clerks who have 4 employees. Emergency communications is up $757,000. Police CID is up $703,000. Solid waste is up $655,000. The building division is up $369,000. Park maintenance is up $342,000. Fire operations is up $265,000. Police technical is up $258,000. Police headquarters $257,000. Drainage maintenance $233,000, and sewer system construction $229,000. All of these divisions are either our bigger divisions or they are getting additional personnel in this next budget year. So I also compared notable budget increases by percentage. This gives you a little clearer picture of maybe some of the smaller divisions that aren't as noticeable dollar amount wise because there's not as many people, but that still have a substantial increase next budget year. So drainage maintenance, the first 3 are repeats, and drainage maintenance is on here because they are getting an additional 4 people. Park maintenance is also getting an additional 4 people, plus they have a reclass. Emergency communications has gotten an additional 4 people over the last 3 years. Animal welfare has 1 additional person plus 6 reclasses over the last 3 years. Lakes benefited from the compensation study. Police CID, they gained 5 people, but those were from uniform, I believe. Uniform dropped 5 and they gained 5. Solid waste has gained an additional 6 people over the last 3 years, plus 4 reclasses, so they are up 38%. Neighborhood services has had 5 reclasses. The city manager has an additional person for the fiscal year 25 budget. Building maintenance and city attorney are up 23% and 21.78%. And then the library has gained 1 additional person, so they are up 21%. So here are all the proposed personnel reclasses for this next budget year. I won't read them all to you. They are in your budget book on page 13. Division 1008, that is arts and humanities. They want to bump up their administrative assistant 1 to a 3, and then they want to move their house manager from a GEO 4 to a GEO 8, and those are pay grades. 2501, that's financial services. We want to bump up our fiscal techs to accounting clerks so that they can do more accounting work and help us with the audit a little more. Right now, they're just kind of limited based on their job description to what they can do for us. 4502 is the building division. They want to bump up their chief inspector to a GE12, and then all their other inspectors from GE07 to GE09. And that column on the far right is what that's going to cost the city to do that. And then 4504 is neighborhood services. They want to bump up their code enforcement officers from GE07s to GE09s. And 5502 is our streets division. They want to bump up their field supervisors to GE12s. 5505 is equipment maintenance. They want to reclass their auto service worker 1 to a 2. 5507 is solid waste. They want to make their supervisors from a 9 to a 12. 7006, that's animal welfare. They want to bump up their supervisors to 12s. And then they also want to bump up their animal welfare officers to 9s. And then finally, 8001 is emergency communications, and they want to reclass their training and support technician to a training coordinator at a GE14. So the reclasses, if we were to approve all of these, would cost the city $124,798. Any questions on these? Okay. So these are the proposed personnel additions and deletions. These are also on page 13 of your budget book, but we have had some changes. The city manager's office is requesting a multimedia specialist. That would cost the city $61,000. Financial services is asking for an accountant, again, pretty much related to the audit. That would cost the city $79,000. Planning wants a planning director. We talked about that on the first slide there, $177,000. Drainage maintenance would like 4 equipment operators. Those will cost the city $52,000 each. They would also like 5 laborers that are seasonal. They'll work about half the year, and those are $16,793 each. Engineering has dropped a civil engineer, so that's saving us $124,000, but they would like to pick up a construction inspector, which would cost the city $61,000. The 2 sewer system construction requests were not in your original budget. They were added as a revision. That principal equipment operator and senior equipment operator would cost the city $58,000 and $55,000. And then emergency communications would like to add 2 call takers, and those would cost the city $64,000 each. Any questions on those? Okay. So this is the last slide on personnel. This is just kind of showing the trend over the last 3 years. Police and fire haven't changed. General in fiscal year 23, we had 555 employees, so total we had 880. In fiscal year 24, that general dropped to 532, which left us with 857 total employees. In fiscal year 25, we're adding several general employees back, 21 to be exact, which would bump us to 878 employees total, which is 2 less than what we had in 23. And then the chart below is just some of the divisions that have been affected the most by the fluctuation in personnel. IT has lost 6. I will say 2 of them we didn't lose. They just got moved to emergency communications so they can solely help them with their IT needs. Park maintenance has gained 4. Streets has lost 5. Drainage maintenance has gained 4. And emergency communications has gained 4. So moving on to our operating expenses. So you'll see our general funds have increased substantially from fiscal year 23 to fiscal year 25 if the budget were approved as written today. Enterprise funds has increased 22%. Our special revenue funds have dropped just under 36%. Internal service funds have gone up just under 21%, and our other funds has dropped 8.05%. So the total increase among all the funds is 23.88%. And we will get into what's causing these increases in later slides. So now we're just going to be talking about the general fund. So these are the various accounts within the general fund and where the increases are. So you can see our supplies account is only up $22,000 from fiscal year 23. Our computer supplies is up $1,500, pretty minimal there. Weapons is up $63,000. PD is buying 40 additional weapons in fiscal year 25, so that's that increase. Radios is up $5,400. Library books is up $21,000. Petroleum products, this is our fuel for all city vehicles. It is up $425,000, and that's based on unleaded being $3 a gallon and diesel being $3.70 a gallon. Chemicals, so this is mostly for pool chemicals, weed treatment, things like that. It is up $243,000. Repair and maintenance is the big one. It's up over $9 million. We will definitely get into that on a later slide, but that is primarily streets. Contract maintenance is up $464,000. We will also get into that on the next slide, or next couple slides. Maintenance, material, motive equipment, this is the cost to repair our vehicles. Inflation has not been kind in this division, or in this category, so it is up $457,000. Unfortunately, it's just not a cost we can avoid. Vehicles break, we got to fix them. Uniform and clothing is up $151,000. There was no real big increase in any one division for this. It was kind of across the board. One thing we repeatedly heard in our budget sessions was boots. We no longer have a contract for boots, and so the price went from $120, $130 to $200. And They, generally speaking, replace boots once a year. So that's part of the reason that has gone up. Rental publication and printing, this is up $111,000. This was also one that was up across the board throughout all divisions, but some of the bigger expenses here is our OLET's full terminal access that PD has, that's $20,000. Arts and Humanities, they $11,000 for their rentals for events, and then $9,000 out at the lakes for their permit stickers, porta potties, things like that. Contingency, this shows it's up $900,000. It is on paper. So we actually budgeted $1 million in fiscal year 23 for this. And this is basically an emergency fund for things that don't qualify for the emergency fund. So if there's a need that arises throughout the city manager has authorization to allow divisions to use this money. So in fiscal year 23, we were actually transferring that money to the divisions so that they can make the purchase themselves. We've kind of gone more to purchasing it out of this account in fiscal year 24, which is why you see the expense in 24, but not in 23. So it shows that we're up $900,000. We're actually down $100,000 from fiscal year 23. Professional and technical services is up over $2 million. Again, we will get into that on the next slide. Mowing is up $691,000. That relates directly to that contract. Legal expenses is up $574,000. Tim will be happy to answer any questions if you have anything on that. Our landline, cell phone, and internet, pretty minimal. We don't have a lot of that anymore. It's up $2,000. Lakes is one of those that still has to have a landline because they're not in city limits. Medicine Park Water Treatment Plant's another one. Postage is up $30,000. That was pretty much across the board. Electricity and natural gas is up $586,000, but you'll see the real big jump was from fiscal year 23 to 24 when all those rates went up. It's pretty minimal from 24 to 25. Insurance is up $235,000. We actually had a change in the policy recently where we are now insuring more vehicles, more of our newer vehicles, so that if something happens, we can go ahead and get those replaced quicker rather than try to have to find the money somewhere. So that's the reason for that increase. Dues and memberships is up $95,000. Training and travel is up $187,000. This is another one that was pretty fluid among all the divisions. Everybody increased a little for more training. Election expense is up $28,000. I'm not sure if we didn't have an election or if we just didn't pay for it in fiscal year 23. I feel like we have an election every year, but pretty much the same from year to year. Yeah. And then other refunds and expenses, it has gone down $765,000. Our Optera settlement came out of one of these accounts, so that's why it's down. Any questions before we get into details? Okay. Okay, so repair and maintenance in streets. So this is a few things which causes this increase. We have the library parking lot in this budget for $200,000. We also have our 30 wins for the city, which was $5 million. I know you all approved that this budget year. However, the contractors have 120 days to start. And since this is general fund money, we have to reallocate that money for next budget year. Now, if they do go ahead and start, I will lower this amount as we start paying those invoices, but we wanted to make sure we had enough money to do what you guys wanted to do. And then the final thing, the Streets and Bridges Committee funding is in here as well, and that is $2.9 million. So that is the reason streets is up so much. Contingency for city at large, we went over this. This is just changing the way we pay for that. Mowing and park maintenance, again, that's due to the contract. Legal expense, professional and technical services. This is our city match. So it was $846,000 in fiscal year 23. It is now up to $1.4 million. Our contract maintenance in the building maintenance division is up $477,000. This is primarily HVAC related. Maintenance material, motive equipment, again, that's everything we need to fix city vehicles. Petroleum products, that's fuel. professional and technical services for engineering. The big expenses here was a contract with Guernsey and traffic engineering consultants, other engineering entities like that. Professional and technical services within the city manager's office is up $269,000. Some of the bigger expenses here were our lobbyist as well as our security for City Hall. Our insurance for City at Large, again, that's the change in policy. We're insuring more items now. Our professional and technical services and park maintenance, up $219,000. That's our landscape contract as well as tree trimming throughout the city. And then professional and technical services and sports and rec. This is security for the rec centers as well as our contract with Lawton Youth Sports Authority, and that is $300,000 in this year's budget. Any questions on these? All right. I'm going to move on to enterprise fund now. You can see supplies, tools, and equipment up $98,000, nothing substantial. Computer supplies up $14,800. Radios are up $2,000. Meter supplies are down $105,000. Chemicals are up $442,000. We will get into that in a couple slides. Same with repair and maintenance. It is up substantially, $1.9 million. Contractual maintenance is up $28,000. Uniform and clothing is up $62,000. Again, that boot contract's part of that. Rental, publication, and printing is up $26,301. Professional and technical services, $576,000. We will get into that on the next slide. Landline, cell phone, up $19,000. Postage, $44,000. Electricity and natural gas is up $613,000, but it's actually down from fiscal year '24. The big jump there was from '23 to '24. Again, that rate increase. Dues and memberships up $13,000. Training and travel, $28,000. Other refunds expenses is up $146,000. I'm probably going to change this. This also has to do with that ODEQ state payment that we make, that we collect in a liability account. I believe this is budgeted to come out of an expense, and it should come out of a liability, so I'm going to look into that. And then our depreciation expense, we changed our policy recently. We don't capitalize anything that is under $5,000 anymore. So computers, radios, we're no longer capitalizing those, so our depreciation expense is actually going to go down because we have less to depreciate. So notable increases to our enterprise fund operating expenses. So repair and maintenance in water distribution is up $809,000. Some of the bigger expenses here are fire hydrants, meter boxes, and concrete repair. Repair and maintenance at the wastewater treatment plant is up
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I had a question on the previous slide.
Sure.
Did you say the rental, publication, printing, did you say it was up or down?
It was what? I'm sorry.
Is it up or down?
It is up $26,000. From fiscal year 25 to 20, or 23 to 25. It is down. Yes, that's where the comparison
23,
is.
20, okay,
yes.
thank you.
Yeah, they are expected to spend $280,000 this fiscal year, so it will go down from 24 to 25. Okay, repair and maintenance for the wastewater treatment plant is up $604,000. Some of the bigger expenses here were pumps, influent motors, and breakers. If you have questions on what those are, Rusty can help you there. Electricity and natural gas. This is for the electric bill for the pump station. You can see we didn't pump much in fiscal year 23. It was only $157,000. Obviously, we've been pumping a lot more, or at least paying more. So we've got an increase of $442,000 budgeted in for fiscal year 25. Repair and maintenance at Medicine Park Water Treatment Plant is up $380,000. Some of the big expenses here were the sludge lagoon maintenance and breaker maintenance. Professional and technical services for Waurika. This is our Waurika storage rights that we pay for every year, and they just go up slightly every year. Electricity and natural gas for Waurika. This is the power bill that we pay Waurika as well. Over the last 3 years, it's gone up $189,000. Chemicals at the Southeast Water Treatment Plant have gone up $175,000 over the last 3 years. Same with the Medicine Park Water Treatment Plant chemicals. They've gone up $173,000. Professional and technical services at the wastewater treatment plant, that is biomonitoring and engineering support. Again, if you have questions what those are, that's Rusty. And repair and maintenance at the Southeast Water Treatment Plant is up $97,000, and chemicals at the wastewater treatment plant are up $77,000. The recurring theme I saw in these repair and maintenance accounts was just things to keep the plants running. And inflation, they've been, a victim of inflation as well. Any questions on any of these increases? Yeah.
On the professional and tech services, they were in 2023, you showed 28,836. 24 projections, 200,000?
For the wastewater treatment plant, yes. I know he's got engineering support.
Okay.
I'll just let him answer.
In FY23, the professional technical services were funded out of special funding for those for the wastewater treatment plant and the full public utilities. It was funded out of a different account. It is now programmed into those division accounts for engineering support for the operations and special review, industrial review, water modeling. And those kind of things are things that we don't have staff to do now, that we're having to contract out and use engineers to do for us.
Do we have sufficient engineers and contractors that
I've got one vacancy. On staff, I've had one vacancy for 3 years that we are not even getting applications for internal. Now, we have 3 engineering firms under contract for water and wastewater. We're using 2 of them for design and engineering support. One of them is doing the rate study for the city.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on this one before we move on? Okay, so we've covered general fund and enterprise. Those are our 2 big ones. We're going to cover the other fund operating expenses now. So we have our stormwater fund. This is up $413,000, and we'll discuss that on a later slide. Emergency reserve, we haven't used it in several years, so it's sitting there at 0. Water system impact fee, this was an old fund that we collected impact fees and then we paid them out as they fulfilled their obligations. So this has actually gone down as we continue to pay these out. We're expecting to spend, or we'll have $230 to pay out should they request that. Drainage maintenance is up $238,000. We'll discuss that on a later slide. The Lawton Parking Authority, this is some really old money. We have $1,191 sitting there in fund balance. I don't know that we're ever going to use this, so I'm going to reach out to Crawford and Associates to see what our options are so we can get this fund closed. Mass Transit, this is where we draw down the money for their grant, and we reimburse them for their expenses. Fiscal year 23 was kind of a big year. Fiscal year 24, we expect to spend $3,200,000. We're thinking it may be a little lower next year, so we have $2.7 million plugged in. McMahon Authority, that's nothing. Hotel Motel has increased $57,000. Cemetery Care Fund is down $139,000. Their fund balance is only at $9,300. They can only use that for capital items, which are $5,000 or more. So we're going to let that fund sit a year and build back up, and then they'll be able to use that money. Narcotics forfeiture, this fund balance is approximately $165,000. So I've plugged in about half of that. If they do decide they need to use more money, we can do a budget amendment for that. So it's up $37,000. Officer training fund, haven't used that money in several years. E911.
Hey, Kristen, one
Yeah.
comment on the last slide. I believe the Parking Authority still manages the parking lot for the mall.
Okay.
Yeah, so I don't think we're ready to close that fund out.
Okay,
Yeah, but
that's fine.
just FYI.
Okay. So E911 is up 240,000. Cellular phone system is up 339,000. And we'll talk about those on the next slide, or slide after next, excuse me. TIF fund, this is where we receipt in our sales and use tax and hotel sales tax to pay to LEDA. We've got this down slightly from fiscal year 23, just 57,000. Debt service prior to 1972, this is loans, it's up 459,000. LIDA, this is also loans, 280,000. Municipal Court Trust Fund, that expense in fiscal year 23 was a one-off of $80. This is usually, we hold the bond money there and then we pay them when they fulfill their bond. General fixed assets is down 1.9 million. Again, this is due to the change in the policy. Lawton Water Authority, this is loans, it's up 1 million. Sewer rehab is up 3 million, and we will talk about that on the slide after next. Landfill assurance, it's the same every year, $650. Debt service, this particular fund, it's down 407,000. IT is up 945,000. We'll talk about that on the next slide. Our health fund is up 698,000. We've budgeted about a 5% increase every year since we're not self-insured anymore. We don't control that. Good thing about this is if we don't have employees taking the health insurance, we only pay what we bring in, basically. It's a in and out fund. License and permits is down $100. Fringe benefits, this is our flexible benefits plan that's offered to employees. It's down slightly, $5,000. General employee retirement is down $65,000. These are our, if an employee leaves and they have money in the system and they want a lump sum refund, that's what these are. Our special revenue is up $456,000. This is schoolhouse slew. Since they'll be getting that money now, we've budgeted the expenses in this account as well. CDBG is down $53,000. That's all grant related. Again, grant expenses are down $4 million. If we get grants in, then at that point we can come back to council and ask to use that money. So notable increases to our other fund expenses. Stormwater, their professional and technical services is up $395,000. This is the property acquisition on I Avenue. Repair and maintenance in the drainage division is up $132,000. This is for drainage pipe, concrete channel repair, things like that. Contract maintenance in the cellular division, which funds E911, is up $211,000, and this is just the maintenance agreements that we need to operate E911 equipment. Principal payments and then the two interests, those are all loan related. Repair and maintenance to sewer rehab is up $854,000. This is PVC pipe, concrete repair, manholes, rock, etc. Professional and technical services in sewer rehab is up $1.6 million. This is flow monitoring, land use plan, and engineering support services. Those were the three big expenses there. Computer supplies and IT is up $422,000. They buy all of the computers, iPads, etc. for the divisions. They are also buying 40 MDTs for PD next fiscal year. That's $300,000, as well as $200,000 worth of surveillance cameras. Our contract maintenance for IT is up $348,000. These are maintenance agreements to run all of the programs that IT runs. Our insurance claim payments is up $652,000, and again, that's contingent on the revenue. And our other expenses is up $321,000. This is the opioid remediation money that we received. Should we choose to use that this year, it's available, as well as drug and alcohol fees that are collected through court. We have about $240,000 sitting there that we could use. Any questions on these? Okay, so last slide is just a repeat of last week, the fund balance of each of the categories of funds should we choose to pass the budget as is today. Obviously, we're not voting on that, just this is more informational. Any questions? Okay. Yeah. You're welcome.
Good job, Kristen.
Very good. Council, there's no real action there. The city manager will continue on with this process. That brings us to item number 2, consider approving the record plat of Lee Commerce Edition and take appropriate action as deemed necessary. Yes, ma'am.
Good afternoon. Just FYI, the acceptance usually for the record plats are in the consent agenda. And so since there wasn't a consent today, this is why it's on new business. But there's nothing unusual about this. It's a record plat at the corner of Brentwood Boulevard and Southeast Lee Boulevard. It's about a little over 15.5 acre tract being divided into 2 lots. The property owner is wanting to sell one of the lots to a Dollar General for construction of a new store there. There was no public improvements tied to the plat, but there will be a water line that they'll have to put in that they're doing through offsite. The City Planning Commission approved this with conditions on March 28th, and all the conditions have been met as of today.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you mean southwest? You said southeast.
Southwest Lee, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, comments? If not, I would.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I've got a motion to approve. Do I have a
A
second?
second.
I have a second. Please vote or call the roll. Oh, yeah. That item was approved 7-0. I entertain a motion to adjourn to executive session.
Chapman does.
We've got a motion and a second. Thank you. Call the roll.
Williams? Warren? Hankins? Chapman? Gill? Hampton? Uyghur?
Mayor Pro Tem and council, I make a motion that we return to the city council meeting from executive session.
Have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Warren. Hankins.
Yes.
Chapman.
I'm sorry, I was waving to the IT guys.
Gill.
They're waving back.
Hampton. Uyghur. Williams.
Present.
Mr. Acting City Attorney.
All right. Pursuant to Section 307B1, Title 25 Oklahoma Statutes, council convened an executive session to discuss particular candidates who have submitted applications for the position of city attorney. That conversation did occur, and it's my understanding we have a motion.
Mayor Pro Tem and Council, I move to approve an employment agreement with John R. Andrew for the city attorney position at the annual rate of $160,014.40 and other provisions as set forth in the agreement with Mr. Andrew to assume city attorney duties no later than May 31st, 2024.
Have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Hankins.
Yes.
Chapman. Gill. Hampton. Uyghur. Williams.
Yes.
Warren.
Yes. That item passed 7-0. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Have a motion and a second to adjourn. Please call the roll.
Chapman. Gill.
Yes.
Hampton. Uyghur. Williams.
Yes.
Warren.
Yes.
Hankins.